presentation for this afternoon, 2 o'clock with the school system. And Dr. Robertson, I will, I can't not tell you, like I've told the rest, as I brought this book. Have you heard about my book? This is a Sears Roebuck catalog, and this is from 1993. And I bought it on eBay for $20. That included shipping. And I can remember as a kid going through this book, and I'm sure most everybody in this room can remember going through this book at some point in time. But the whole point of this is that things change. That when some companies were on their high and they stuck to what they thought was the right thing without branching out, looking at what was changing around them, they ended up going out of business. Now, government won't go out of business, but if we're not careful, we will overtax and will cause residents to move from our area, and will cause businesses to close an area. And that's not what we're in business to do. And so I think we're here to spend our taxpayer dollars wisely and ensure we're offering the best possible services, because that's what taxpayers elect us to do, is make sure that their services are pristine and the best around. And so that's why I bring this book, to remind us, because in my prior world, I sit back and look at this a lot, because Sears is no longer in existence because they lost that vision. So, so I will, so you got my 2 cents. So, and it was free. So, but I will turn it over to you and let you lead us through the school budget presentation.
Mayor,
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Commissioner. Mayor.
when they come before, did you give them any directives in terms of what you want them to share with them?
I did. The 3 buckets. And Dr. Robertson, I had a conversation about it.
And to make sure everybody knows, somebody's going to say what that is, right?
Would you like me to re-explain those 3 buckets? Bucket number 1 is, if you're asking for more money, how's that going to impact the taxpayer? How's it going to impact the students? How's it going to impact the teachers? How's it going to impact overall Hamilton County? The number 2 bucket is, what are we holding the line with is the key core things that what's in the school system we can't lose and can't let go of. And then the third thing is probably, to me, and I think Commissioner Mackey's focus is probably one of the most important things, is in government, we like to hang on to things. But in the real world, we got to transition from things. And so what are we transitioning from, and how are we utilizing those assets to help us in other areas that maybe we didn't have X number of years ago? So, so I would hope we look at it in that frame. So, Dr. Robertson, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Yes, sir. Well, appreciate you bringing a nostalgic piece of history there. I'll take the liberty of telling my story about the Sears catalog. It was not 93, it's probably more like 83, but my granddad, who is from White Bluff, Tennessee, for Christmas, we got to spend $20 out of the Sears catalog, and he would always give us advice I never really understood as a kid, but he would say, be particular. But I think that's what you're saying, is in the budget, be particular. So thanks for that reminder. Appreciate our board members being here. We've got 5 of our board members, Steve Slater, Gary Keene, Jill Black, Kritza Jones, and our board chair with us, Mr. Joe Smith. So appreciate their support. What I will start by saying is, number 1, I appreciate the opportunity to come and present the budget to you guys. We are presenting a balanced budget that does protect investment in classrooms. To do that, we did have to pull back on some things that we'll get through. Before we really get into details, I think it's important for us to set our foundation. Our foundation is our just cause, that we want to create opportunity by design so that all kids can thrive and experience a future without limits. We really have 4 core beliefs, and you can see those there. I won't go through each of them, but the first one, we firmly believe that public education is a foundation of not just this community, but communities across the state, and it's something that needs to be protected and really elevated. Our values of speaking to principals this morning, I talk about our values is what we live out every day. And one of the things that I'm most proud about in this budget is not the 11-0 vote that we got last week, which people think that's what I'm most proud of. What I'm most proud of is that in this budget, we stayed true to our values. I think that we have stewarded our resources efficiently, and we have collaborated really well as a board and administration. So I'm proud that we stuck to these values. And then, of course, our 5 commitments that really ground the work that we do in Hamilton County Schools. Got to experience this a couple weeks ago, graduates. I know many of you, actually all of you, were at graduations and got to celebrate our graduates. This is what we want to see. When my daughter graduated 2 Fridays ago, these are the things I look at that I want her to be able to say that she is, not just that she's academically thriving, but that she's an effective communicator, that she's resilient in her learning, that she is solutions oriented. That's what people are looking for in employees as they move out of Hamilton County Schools. So quick reminder of our budget and how we budget. I think one of the things that we did really well this year, and it was really at the pressing of our finance chair, Mr. Ben Doherty, we got started early. And so we've done a lot of work going back to January 12th, where we sat and had a budget work session outside of the school district to really get a foundation set. It really set the tempo for our budget. We spent a lot of time working on this, and then of course had a vote last week on the budget, and we're bringing it to you today for you to vote
budget to move forward to so that we fiscal year 27. A reminder of the funds that are budgeted that are included in the presentation here. And then we'll start here and just in terms of what you'll see over the next half hour and what you all have seen in the full budget book. It's the fourth year that I've been able to bring a proposed budget to y'all that does not have a county property tax increase included in the revenue numbers. That's mainly because Commissioner Graham said that he wasn't supporting one at about every other meeting over the last year. We took instructions there. We were able to squeeze out a 2% raise across the board to county employees. If you remember, it was only 1% last year with a small bonus. It's 2% across the board. And then I wanted to put in context the new revenue and how it was allocated. The vast majority of new revenue, modest as it is, ends up being allocated to public safety. If you add together the sheriff's office, EMS, volunteer fire, juvenile detention, emergency management, 911, you're talking about $4.8 million of new revenue that's being allocated to those various agencies. And then we can also certainly, if you have any questions, we can clarify that this is the first full budget year for the OPT team that we're quite proud of, that's entirely funded by opioid abatement funds provided by the state to us to be good stewards of. Another significant priority in this budget coming together, even though it's revenue neutral, it's a significant change based on actions taken by this commission. Commissioner Eversole worked with us to outline what a county planning department would look like. MOUs and the day-to-day operations of that planning department have mostly been worked through. Services will begin on July 1st, first day of the fiscal year. But that department is entirely planned here. One of the only unique features, if you will, this budget is funding being provided in collaboration with the school system for 3 CTE career advisor positions. I think these are positions that all of you, all 11 members of the commission, if I were to project out 6-8 months from now, I think these are positions you would all take a lot of pride in. One of the things we've been able to work on together that really does represent the partnership of the county commission, of county general government, and the school system is where education meets economic development. A whole lot of the different considerations of this body throughout the year are on different economic development or workforce development matters. And these positions are recognizing that we've made historic and new investments into career and technical education with the opening of Franklin Roberts. If you look at the way that the school system is going to route students to that school, in addition to Harrison Bay Future Ready Center and North River Future Ready Center, every student in high school in the county would have an opportunity to go a career and technical route. To maximize that investment, we pulled together a CTE advisory task force. And one of the recommendations that came out of that task force was for there to be a person in these schools that are connected to industry. The reason I say I think all 11 of y'all will find this model and even just these 3 individuals to be valuable to y'all is imagine how encouraging it would be for us to know that person and to watch students from North River Future Ready Center, from Harrison Bay, be connected, for Hamilton County students to be connected right into the workforce, not just upon graduation, but also for co-op opportunities during and what we call in modern times a work-based learning opportunity. We see a lot of potential there to make sure that the investments we're making on the public side are connected with the needs of private industry and the major employers in our community. The last thing, much less exciting, but it is just a reality of this budget, unfortunately, just like last year. Most of our new revenue goes to the rising cost of health insurance. This is probably one of the most frustrating realities in America today for any employer, and Hamilton County is a large employer for reasons that Lee Browner can dive into. further, as we get further along into this presentation, we've allocated a little over $3.6 million additional over last year, just to health insurance premiums. We've made the strategic decision while county pay in many departments is not as high as we want it to be. We are proud of a strong offering in terms of benefits, particularly health insurance benefits. And so we've made it a priority over the last 2 years to keep employee premiums to a minimum. But that is extremely costly. And it does end up being not a major priority, but the major funding item, new funding item, not just in this year's budget, but in last year's budget. And we hope that it will not be that in next year's budget, candidly. This is a big picture look at the budget with the school systems represented there at $705 million. Our proposed fiscal year 2027 budget tops $1.1 billion. This is a summary. I mean, y'all just heard from the superintendent, but I thought a simple breakdown would be helpful to show you year over year, an increase of $13 million in the school systems budget. Most of that is not local funding. A small amount of that is, but you've also got TISA funding. And, you know, since we've been here, the state's funding for public education has been a real windfall that I think you're beginning to see, frankly, even in the performance of the school system, as Dr. Robertson just shared with y'all. Now we're flying blind, isn't it? Well, we'll all take a break here for a minute. That's visualized local revenues versus total budget of the school system. And then this is what we think of as the general fund budget, $338 million, a $6.6 million increase over last year. Unfortunately, as I turn it over to Lee Browner, that $6.6 million is not as simple as we have $6.6 million of new revenue to allocate. There's a government accounting trick in there that I'll let him explain, and then Chief Roddy will take over, and I'll see you guys in a minute.
That worked. Which button did you hit? The enter? Oh, okay, we'll go with that one. Yes, as the mayor said, there's I wouldn't call it an accounting trick, but I do want to go over the revenue increase in our budget of $6.6 million, which is about 2%. Just real briefly going through that, the major drivers of it, we have property tax growth of 3.4 million, sales tax growth in the unincorporated areas has come in better than we were projecting and seems to be consistent. We had a net decrease in federal and state grants, but again, the piece that I do want to talk to you about is there was an accounting entry for leases. And basically, the way that works is any new lease, you know, the $1.8 million is related to new leases and subscription-based IT agreements that will begin in fiscal year 27. This revenue is offset by an equal amount of expenditures that government accounting standards require us to budget for and account for in the annual report. We have to record these agreements as if we're purchasing the assets on these that we're leasing and incurring an obligation. And therefore, it's not really true revenue. So again, saying 6.6 million is available for new operations is technically not correct. 4.8 million would be the correct amount to say. And again, it's an unusual adjustment this year as a result of lease approved in September of this year, or September of 25, for EMS equipment for mainly cardiac monitors and automatic external defibrillators that we did that will go into effect July 1. So it appears as if we're getting $1.8 million of revenue, which is the value of that lease. and $1.8 million later on, you'll see in expenses, but the reality is that's just an accounting entry that we have to make. So probably a better big picture would be this next slide, where again, if you look at our budget, we've got, starting with the increase that the actual numbers of 6.6 million. If you pull that 1.8 million out, the real amount of revenue that we've got available to fund operations and improvements in operations is $4.8 million. Then kind of, again, staying on a very big picture basis, what we tried to do, one of the mayor's priorities was to try to give employee compensation increases, somewhere along the way, to at least match inflation if we could. I know we did not get there, but this budget incorporates 2% raises, which is a cost of $2.5 million. And again, maybe the unsexy or whatever you want to call it, expenditure that we have to do is for health insurance premiums, which we had to increase that. And we'll go through that later on in a slide in further detail of why we had to increase our health insurance premiums 10%. So just including those two items right there is an increase in expenses of $6.1 million, which equating that against the revenue growth for operations means there's really not a lot of money left for any kind of new initiatives or major improvements or major new programs available in this year's budget. Kind of zipping through that, again, stepping back to the 30,000 foot picture, you see that we've got graph of our revenues by source. And again, it's probably no news to anyone that property taxes is the main piece of revenue for us. It accounts for 59% of our revenues. Sales tax and other taxes is about 9%. And then we have intergovernmental revenues is probably the other major piece, which is grants and other intergovernmental revenues that we get. And that basically, that's a pie chart that just basically breaks out the source of our revenues. The next chart is basically the source of where the money goes. And again, no surprise to anyone, salaries and benefits, like for just about every government or the major expense that the county has. And this is 57% of our budget is for that. Another huge chunk that you can see for transfers to other funds of 17% of the budget. The vast majority of that is the general fund funds the debt service fund, which provides payment of principal and interest on all of our debt. Going back to some of the main operating costs of us is 57% budget. Without repeating myself, this year has a 2% raise, cost of $2.5 million, medical insurance, $3.7 million. And that pretty much covers the majority of the growth in our revenues that we had. Just looking, again, zooming closer in on salaries, total cost of salaries in this year's budget's $124 million. We do have 25 less full-time positions in this budget than last year's budget of 19, basically 1,913 full-time positions, and the average salary of a county employee is $62,500, the median salary $55,900. So, and the next piece is, again, I think throughout this presentation, you're going to hear a lot of salary increase 2%, health insurance adjustment. It is basically going to be the piece to every department's budget that went up. But anyway, as you can see, health insurance benefits is $40 million in this budget, which makes up about 12% of our operating budget, 11.9%. And here is the reason we're making the adjustment in health insurance is, as you well know, the county is self-insured for employee medical costs, and we use the self-insurance fund to account for those medical and related costs, basically to pay those costs and to serve as a buffer for us to have a fund balance in case unusual adjustments occur. And this slide basically is showing the change over the last 11 years in our fund balance, which for whatever reason, we were very fortunate, and health insurance costs, we were able to maintain them probably until fiscal year 24 or so is when, for whatever reason, and it's happening throughout the nation everywhere else, health insurance costs or health costs are going up. We have responded accordingly. I think 2 years ago, we increased our premiums 13.7%. Last year, we increased them 10.7%. This year, we're going to increase them another 10%. And again, with the goal to make sure we protect the self-insurance fund and remain whole there. So anyway, that's one of the pieces of the budget that is very costly to the county's budget. And I will now hand the mic off to COO. Yeah, the other guy.
The other guy. Afternoon, Commission. As I listened to Lee describe the leasing entry as a revenue factor, I would never call that an accounting trick. I would also never attempt to explain that in any way ever again to anyone, because I still count with my fingers. But thanks, Lee. I'm glad you're here. First slide, as you'll see, Commission, is a breakdown of the general fund capital outlay. Its proposal is just short of $11 million total, with the highlights in that fund being new capital leases. One of the primary bulks of the new capital lease is outfitting your EMS agency with new cardiac monitors and automatic external defibrillators within the ambulances. The ones that are currently on those vehicles need to be replaced. This is an overall lease program that will replace them in every single one of the ambulances that we deploy throughout the county. Next, you will see 1.4 million going to the sheriff's office. That is for the sheriff to use as the fiscal year develops on any items from vehicles, the specific equipment that's necessary to outfit those vehicles, whether they're marked or unmarked or specialty or special operations vehicles, whatever he needs to get those things outfitted and up into service, as well as computer software upgrades, facility upgrades, whatever he encounters through the course of this next 27, 28 year that he needs some capital outlay in order to reach his goals. You'll then see information technology equipment, just a little over $1 million. The majority of that is going to go into different upgrades and maintenance for switches, servers, and most importantly, cloud redundant backup, with the focus of IT Director Combs and his number 2, Raul, focusing heavily in conversations we've had over the last year to make sure that our infrastructure and security is where we need it within our IT department for the entire county. So that's where the bulk of that capital outlay is going, is to make sure that we are maintaining the level of cybersecurity that's necessary and that we expect. We have contracts on existing leases for total vehicles through county government to the tune of 1.4 million. Parks and Recreation has $910,000 allocated. That is a 50-50 split between us and City of Chattanooga Parks for various capital projects, focusing majority around the River Park and Enterprise South. That is the $910,000 you see listed there. You then proceed farther down into the courthouse. You see audio-visual updates to the tune of $874,000. In all of the courtrooms in this building, as well as all the courtrooms in the courts building across the street, it is going to be a revamp of the production AV equipment that's used in court testimony, technology, everything else, also including the commission room. A lot of the equipment that you see in the courtrooms and in here, we've done the cataloging on it in IT, and some of them are coming up within about 8 years of service already. Technology is starting to jump the ability of some of what we have. I did not plan for that to shut down in the middle of this presentation, but I thought that was very timely, so I wanted to point that out. Thank you, Brooke. So we can get some of those things that do happen inadvertently taken care of and get our systems upgraded throughout all the courtrooms as well as in here. We have replacement vehicles. That's an 80% grant funded for $705,000. That is a continuation of a 3rd-year grant relative to the EV purchases. If we can get you some more numbers as to the total distribution on those, so I won't go all the way down that road. And then speaking of roads, the last line is $600,000 for the highway department. That's going to go into heavy equipment purchasing for Brandon Marrocker and his team so they can make sure that we are ready to either do maintenance or whatever else we have coming within highway projects coming in the next year. If you notice on the next slide, this is the general fund budget by division. It's broken down within each individual one. As you'll see, the majority of those coming up, there's an individual slide on each one of these that outlines what those increases are to a degree that we can go into here today, sirs. Next slide, in the independent offices, I will point out on this slide, and you will see it on all the subsequent slides, towards the bottom, you will note where it says includes employee raises and then a dollar amount, and then health insurance increase and a dollar amount. We've carried those over on all the subsequent slides, not only for you all to see individually what's going on in each one of the departments within county government, but so the general public and the media can understand when we're talking about, when it talks about those increases. But in the lower box where you see, and I assume that's green, since I'm colorblind, I think it's green. Not sure who put green in there, but I appreciate that. Is it outlines what we're talking about with the title above it. So when it talks about independent offices, if you notice in the box below, it includes multiple departments headed by an elected official and or an official independent of the mayor's office. You will see that same explanation or list of individual offices or entities that roll up into what we're talking about on the slide. So there's no confusion about what that funding stream is going towards for the general public that may not be as familiar as you all are with the county budget. On this one, talking about independent offices, there's different items relative to the election commission for 358 juvenile court detention unit. I will speak to that. Is they had requested a staffing increase for safety and coverage issues and workforce issues within juvenile detention. So we're going to increase them by 2 FTEs in the coming year so they can make sure that we are adequately staffed within the juvenile detention unit. You do see increases relative to the criminal court clerk and the juvenile court. That's a grant that's 100% funded. In the next slide, you'll see the unassigned departments. Again, it's listed down below in the green box. That is a total expenditures of roughly 86 million, with a lot of that going towards the capital outlay, which was discussed a moment ago with Lee Browner's explanation on the new lease and IT agreements, appropriation to Hamilton County Schools for CTE positions, compliance department as a new cost center, and then the debt service appropriations, which you're going to have Lee Browner give you a better explanation coming up after me, what we're talking about in the debt service area. Next is the finance division. Total expenditures roughly 12,852,000. Major changes are a partnership with IS in the city of Chattanooga for 867, the accounting department, and then the roll down numbers that you see below it that exist on all the slides relative to the dollar amount of the employee raise and health insurance increase. Next slide is the public works division, totaling roughly 52. Major changes are the planning department, which is a new cost center, which is totaling $917,000. You do have the highway and associated departments of 636, which a breakout of that 636,000, actually 98% of a portion of that is entirely funded by the state. So upon request, we can break that 636 down. It's not all 98%, but some of the dollars in that are only 2 county dollars for every 100 because the state is assisting us with some of the highway and associated department funding. And then the regional planning agency, you do see that decline of 899 that's being reallocated within the budget for the planning department. Next is health and social services division with a total budgeting line item of 26,883. Major changes is the reduction in force of the dental health application, Ooltewah Health Clinic, and community services, as well as some supported agencies that are coming into that, which supports the decision. And I can give a longer explanation if requested on the supported agency funding towards Clinica Medicos, SEMPA, and the United Way. So I think we're doing questions at the end of that, or I can do it now if there's a preference for that. Roger that, sir. In the Human Resources Division, you have a total allocation of slightly over $3 million, with the majority of that increased funding in the major changes section is going into a NeoGov software program. This is going to standardize a process that HR that I think has struggled with for some time. I noticed it as well when I started with the county is we were compartmentalized and siloed in how we did certain things, from hiring individuals to tracking their training, what orientation looked like for new employees. This is a single stop software package within NeoGov, which is the current platform that we use. We're just going to increase the funding line into that contract to increase the use of certain modules within NeoGov. It'll make HR more efficient, more effective, and also prepare us in everything from litigation to how fast we can hire individuals to how much time we spend in orientation versus how much time we get new employees actually in their roles and working in their role for the county. Next slide is the Public Safety Division, which is just over 39 million, with a lot of your major changes being the 1.4 million towards emergency medical services, which again, that comes into raises, medical costs, the cardiac monitors and the AEDs, which I mentioned a moment ago. But also wanted to highlight some of the cost in that major change increase is going to be the fact that your EMS unit is now one of only 5 EMS agencies within the state of Tennessee that will be transporting whole blood. This is a remarkable life-saving on-the-scene application, and they have gone through a tremendous amount of work and training, working with Dr. Buchheit through Erlanger under the licensure to be able to carry whole blood resources to trauma scenes to treat individuals that are in a severe blood loss incident. So it is, I just wanted to really highlight what EMS has done for that. That is part of your increase. But dollar for dollar, it is one of the most remarkable applications that I've seen in first responder public service in the few years that I've been with the county to be able to shift into that role. And the fact that they're one of 5 highlights how well Director Batson and his team are doing over there. You have 911, the district, which is funding for the 911 contract for dispatchers, and then the allocation to volunteer services. Your volunteer fire departments is a 3% increase across the board for all your VFDs. And moving into the sheriff's office, total expenditures, a little over 73 million, and has a breakdown of roughly some of where that goes as far as their major changes relative to IS systems, drone maintenance agreements, patrol, and so forth. And I've said this, I said it last year, I'll say it again. Where's he at? There he is on the back row. I would never speak to Sergeant or to Sheriff Garrett's budget. I would absolutely push any questions over to him so he can get into whatever granular nature you may have in your question of the sheriff's budget. And at this time, I will turn it back over to Mayor Wall.
As I mentioned earlier, I thought it was appropriate for us to revisit the county's debt service fund and the schedule of debt service payments. Obviously, this commission approved a very large bond to support a historic series of school projects and deferred maintenance projects all across the county. That came at a significant cost, and one that we have worked through very diligently. But here, as we plan fiscal year 2027, you can see some relief on the horizon. In the next 2 years, you'll see our debt service obligations through the retirement of debt drop $10 million, and then another $5.5 million 2 years after that. But I thought, for all the deliberations that went on around the issuance of those bonds and the conversations about when the county might be able to issue bonds on an organic revenue trajectory or a no tax increase revenue trajectory, we actually are now looking out a couple years to where you'll see debt service payments annually drop significantly. With that, we'll move on to the hotel motel fund. I want to give a caveat as we approach this subject that the county and the city of Chattanooga have for months been involved in conversations, negotiations with different community leaders about the future of how we market our community holistically. I'd say that's everything from considerations around the convention center, a search that's imminent for a new leader of the convention center, a search that's imminent for the leader of the tourism company. It's been a very constructive process. It is one that I think likely will cause the need for a budget amendment sometime in early fiscal year 2027. I think there will be a recommendation that both the city and county bring to the city council and to the county commission that will amend the budget or customize the budget, if you will, that we are presenting and that will be approved over the next couple months. And I think that's something that you all find very encouraging about the future of our community and how we're positioned to market ourselves. It's something that Commissioner Baker's been involved in. Commissioner Eversole is on the tourism company board and will be involved in that CEO search. Something that we have made a priority. It has not necessarily been easy, but we've made a priority that the city and county would get to what we think is a fair 50-50 split of funding the tourism company. A lot of people find it very unusual that the Chattanooga Tourism Company historically has been funded exclusively by the county. We've made some progress towards parity over the last couple budgets, not as much as we'd like. And so what we look at this year's budget proposal as is a bridge to a 50-50 funding partnership next year, which would align with new leadership, likely some structural changes. We're looking at best practices across the country in terms of how a tourism company and a convention center, which is city and county owned, how they should work collaboratively together. That's been a strained relationship at times. Both parties will tell you that. So we're working through a better approach. Part of what we did this year in building the bridge is we have allocated $5 million of hotel motel revenue towards our part of the Chattanooga riverfront redevelopment. That revitalization is something that we went to Governor Lee and asked for an investment from the state. The state put $15 million in based on the city and county putting $5 million in. The city of Chattanooga, between last year's budget and this year's budget, has funded their $5 million contribution through hotel motel tax. Candidly, I think it is only appropriate, considering that we would do the same thing. Property tax dollars, I think we would all probably find agreeable or best used if we had to, set real responsibilities or priorities. We would say, road construction, road maintenance, public schools, public safety, these three things in no order, but those are very clear priorities, I think, from a property tax standpoint. And so the fact that the city has chosen to fund their side of that contribution to the riverfront redevelopment with hotel motel funds, we think it's also appropriate for the county to do the same thing. This is an overview of budgeted funds from the hotel motel fund. Those collections, are growing steadily. You can see around town with your own eyes the development of new hotels. I think next year will probably be a promising year from a hotel motel tax revenue standpoint. Here's a summary of the largest items that we proposed in terms of appropriations from the hotel motel fund, starting at $6 million to the Chattanooga Tourism Company. Quick point of clarification: in this year's budget, the tourism company requested $3.5 million from the city of Chattanooga. We are hopeful that the city of Chattanooga will grant that request, and that would represent the 2-to-1, the 2/3, 1/3 bridge year that we've talked about. I mean, we really were hopeful, candidly, that we would come into this year getting to parity. I don't think we're quite going to get there. We also have to have some conversations about the future of the Sports and Events Corporation, which has now some of the sports contracts, that are here in the city of Chattanooga. We also need the city of Chattanooga to fund the Sports and Events Corporation or sports marketing. I think many of us would like to see sports and events come back under the umbrella of the Chattanooga Tourism Company. I wanted to mention that during this presentation because that's something that we are actively working towards, is a solution that will work for Tim Morgan to come back to the Chattanooga Tourism Company, which is going to be under new leadership. And I think those relationships are as strong as they've been, certainly in the 3.5 years that I've been doing this. You've had a lot of great board leadership that has gotten things in a good place. But if you look at, our $7 million there between sports and the Chattanooga Tourism Company, if the city will come in at $3.5 million, that's 2/3 and 1/3. We think that's adequate funding for fiscal year 2027. Again, I think you're going to have a broader city and county proposal that will likely come early in the fiscal year. We'll bring that to y'all, but that's a general picture of where we would like to see things go. Then you see the $5 million for our part of the Chattanooga Riverfront Parks project, which is just unbelievable. I don't know that there are many projects that we'll all be a part of that I think we'll be prouder of than that one. And right now you've got a private capital campaign underway that is going to, I think, represent for those of us in leadership positions now, one of the most significant public-private partnerships of the last decade here in our community. The $336,000 number there is the same as last year. That's a very, very small portion, about $5 million portion of the $250 million bond that was connected to recreation projects. And then we've got $200,000 for the history experience, which I've been told is coming along nicely. This is for operations. It is still expected to open somewhere in proximity to the 250th formal celebration, then run for a year downtown. It's a great downtown activation, something we think y'all will all be really proud of and hopefully enjoy with your families. Great opportunity for us to tell people the history of this community, which in many ways does mirror the history of our country. And then the last proposal that we want to bring to y'all alongside the budget this year, something this commission I think should take a whole lot of pride in, is the investments that you've made into a county roads fund proper. So beyond paving hundreds of miles of county roads, and this is, you all know this is really at the urging of Dr. Highlander, something that started as a working group. I think we realized there were deferred investments. It's one of the reasons that we've been willing to go to fund balance to transfer funds into a road improvement fund that is largely focused on capacity and safety. I mean, I think safety is the major issue. Some traffic is inevitable in a great community, but we know we've got issues with road safety that can be addressed. We're starting to make progress. I think that progress gives us the confidence to invest further. So in 2024, we proposed $5.8 million. In 2025, we proposed $11.6 million. And then we're going to ask y'all to allocate an additional $3.5 million, which will total a $15 million commitment into that roads fund. We think there's a way for the commission, our office, Public Works, Todd Lehman, Nathan Janeway, and others to identify which project should be next. Both of the last times that we've come to you and proposed funding, we've brought projects. We're not doing that specifically, even though I think we all have a shared sense of where those investments need to be made. I'm looking here at Commissioner Eversole, whose district, along with Commissioner Highlander and Commissioner Smith, are seeing an unprecedented amount of traffic and some major safety concerns. And so as we look back to studies that we've done about projects that we think we should prioritize, and also as we look ahead to the work that's being done with the funds that had been allocated to the Hilltop Drive extension, there's more projects in Ooltewah that are going to be identified. Or when I say Ooltewah, kind of broadly, the east part of the county where there's significant infrastructure concerns. And then we also have been reviewing, recommendations that we got over the last couple of years, because we know there's several different issues in Middle Valley. But in terms of how that additional $3.5 million would be allocated, that's something that, unfortunately, these projects move slower than school construction. There's a lot of times right-of-way acquisition, and people want safer roads, and in some cases they want more capacity. And it's hard to understand, why it is that a roundabout would take years, but it's a complex process that we're now, I think, beginning to understand well enough to come to you and say that we think we're in a place to put a few more projects in the pipeline, but we want to work collaboratively. It might be best for Commissioner Highlander to reconvene that working group for us just to discuss. Maybe he and Chairman Ken Smith can arm wrestle over, whether it's Northeast Hamilton County or Middle Valley where the next investments go. But we think over the next couple of years you will see significant changes as a result of some of the major investments. I think about sort of London Lane out in Commissioner Helton's district, or a roundabout that is going to solve some severe safety issues in Commissioner Shipley's district. And then even not to overlook part of what we've done. And I think over the next few weeks, as y'all consider this request, it'd be appropriate for Brandon Myrocker, who's one of the most understated leaders, department leaders in county government, for him to give y'all an update on some of the small things that they've done that have made an enormous difference just in visibility and signage, things that really affect safety, but don't necessarily cost millions of dollars like capacity or intersection upgrades can. So we think that's a significant statement. We think it's one that, given the accumulation of fund balance, is appropriate. There's a reason that we didn't come to you all at once with a $15 million proposal a couple years ago. We wanted to see how fund balance was sustained. As these budgets got tight, we feel comfortable running the number up to $15 million. And that's not a formal part of the budget. That's not but it is something, this is the time of year where we think holistically about the county's fiscal position. And so we're bringing y'all another proposal to continue to invest in county roads from a capital standpoint. And that's just the final clarification is, again, we don't want to take away from the incredible work of the highway department over the years. The county's actually done a good job with the resources that it has of maintaining county roads. It's just that these are roads, as we often discuss, that are seeing an enormous amount of use given how many people live off of and rely on these roads. And so where we've fallen short, we feel like over the last couple of decades, is in capital investments, the larger investments, again, safety type and capacity type upgrades. So with that, we expect some point later this month, most likely date, or some point next month, most likely June 17th is when we would ask you all to vote on this proposed budget. Thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I don't see any lights. All right, Commissioner Sharp.
Thank you, Chairman. Mayor, thank you for the presentation. Lee, Chief, thank you for the presentation. I got to say, I really appreciate how it was presented, all of these things, the various ideas as to how you come about it. Mayor, I want to say that I think that by and large, we agree not only on, funding allocations, but in the principles behind those. I might have rearranged some of the priorities a little bit, schools and roads.
Well,
But-
those three were not to be in any order. If anything,
Yeah. Well, living in a district that is entirely municipal, where the residents are taxed specifically to pay for the roads that they use in those municipalities. When it comes to county funding projects, naturally, schools tends to be the top line there. But I get it. I mean, I know that we need to address these roads, and I've supported all of the resolutions that come before us to address roads in unincorporated Hamilton County. I just feel that I would be at a loss to not mention that, the state of Tennessee has taken away some of the tools that have enhanced counties' abilities or communities' abilities to invest in various road projects when they took away the ability to incorporate or annex, which generated revenue specifically for these types of services. I don't have my bifocals on, so I'm struggling with looking at people and reading here. I'm sorry about that. So we're going to go back to the fund balance for $3.5 million for roads projects. And the 15.1 million, that's cumulative. Is that accurate? Just to be clear.
that's right. That would represent two $5.8 million allocations and an additional $3.5 million allocation that we're proposing.
Right. One of the, and I almost hesitate to even bring it up, but we keep 3 years in a row, we go to the fund balance to address road projects that we know that need to be addressed. And, in other communities across the country, there are various mechanisms that they use for revenue generation to address those types of projects. At some point, we're going to have to do something different. We can't keep going to the fund balance to address um, capital projects that we know that we're gonna need to plan for. And I know it's not part of the budget this year, but we're gonna have to look at some of that stuff, whether it's, enhanced road overlays, municipal or I don't know what you call them specifically. You call them all kinds of things. Some type of I don't know, suburban overlay for unincorporated areas of the county that are experiencing growth that require additional services that might not otherwise been required. You understand where I'm getting
Yeah,
at
yeah,
here, right?
yeah.
Um,
Well, let me respond to that part because I agree with you in principle that the proposals we've made that we would pull from fund balance to fund capital road projects is not a practice that we would say would go on forever. I agree with you in that regard. I think the reason that we have taken this approach, I don't know that we'll take it again in this same way, but the reason that we have is working off of a belief that these are in fact projects that were deferred, whether they were actively deferred or just overlooked. I think there's a strong case to be made that county should have been making these investments. I don't know if that was 18 years ago or 13 years ago, but at some
I don't
point
disagree.
that there were some of these safety upgrades. I mean, Commissioner Baker's not here, but as a resident of Signal Mountain for the last couple of years, it is kind of shocking that there were not reflectors on these mountain roads that are often covered in fog. So there are some pretty obvious things that the county had not modernized from an infrastructure standpoint. So the revenue justification in my mind, because I hear you also on the considerations of, what municipal taxpayers pay for as opposed to county taxpayers, but county taxpayers or predominantly
We're all
people,
county taxpayers.
Well,
just to be clear.
that is true. Taxpayers who live in unincorporated parts of the county do contribute in a way that we forget about. It is modest, but there is over 10 million in this year's budget, about $12 million of projected revenue from unincorporated sales tax. Other than maybe the Dollar General on Signal Mountain, I don't contribute much to that. That is going to be from a gas station to gas station. Few examples of grocery stores, some other retail activity. A lot of it's online sales, online purchases that the sales tax generated there. I think that is a revenue stream that if I were to put myself in the shoes of a resident of the unincorporated parts of the county, I'd be saying, I think that's a justifiable revenue stream that should be coming back to the county unincorporated in a way that we can speak to. And I don't have an exact formula for you, but to the extent that we've allocated now, or that we're proposing an allocation up to 15.1 million, I think if you were to go back over, 10 years and say, maybe I'm speculating 80, 90, $100 million of sales tax generated, I look at it as a fair amount of investment, given that we know we've got some deferred needs. And an important thing, we've talked to Commissioner Eversole about this. These projects are really difficult to engineer and manage. And so even if we had funds, we can't do everything right now. The county is really now learning, because the capital project process is so different. These larger projects require us to develop new specialties, to hire different types of engineers. I think we're preparing for a time when hopefully, and I think there's a strong reason to believe that our years of advocacy towards real estate transfer tax will lead to success in the next couple of years. And I think if you look out over the last 20, 30 years in Nashville, usually something as significant is what we have all asked for, not just here, this body in our office, but across the state. Something that significant is not something the legislature is going to go along with immediately. It has to sort of work its way up the priority list, but it's got the attention of the foremost leaders in Nashville. So I look forward to a clearer answer. The state does not give us a whole lot of different. I mean, I think you and I also, have
I
shared
think we agree on
understanding of
that
this,
point
right?
also.
Not enough options in terms of how you can pay for these things in a way that makes a lot of sense to the people who live here, because the taxing jurisdictions are different and complicated. And it's something I think we should explain as transparently as we could, but knowing and being candid with the people who live here that it is imperfect because, you know, Red Bank runs up against Chattanooga, then Chattanooga runs up against the county unincorporated, and the county unincorporated runs up against Signal Mountain, and we all live here and share a lot of this infrastructure together. But I did want to point out, we think of sales tax as potentially an overlooked revenue source if you're looking back over the last decade.
Yeah, and I would just say finally, with regard to this specific point, you know, we did the one roundabout, we came back, we did another one. Now this is a third draw. I mean, this is a pattern of us doing this. It's time to look at this seriously. I agree with you 100%. The state should send back to localities that where the revenue was generated initially, this real estate transfer tax. I think everyone on this board voted to support that. But I mean, frankly, I'm not holding my breath for them to do what I would consider being the right thing. I think we should be proactive and going into coming out of a third budget now where we've done this. I think we need to look at some different options, and I would ask for you guys to do that before we come to another budget and try to do this yet again. And you know, I know that it's a tight budget year. It's tough, and I think priorities really show up when budgets are really tight like this. And for the most part, you know, I'm not going to cause a fuss about this budget. I don't think at all just yet. It does not stick out in my head anything that I'm really going to fuss about. I don't know that it'd make a big difference if I did. I'm not real pleased with the decision about the dental practices, and I'd like to understand that a little bit more. I think it was mentioned earlier a little bit, something with Clinica Medicos. And if that's something you want to do now, or we can do it later, I don't know. It's
Commissioner's discretion. I can meet with you, Commissioner, if you care for a deeper one and we can go over it in depth, or I can give
I would prefer us to do some deep dives together. I think the mayor's extended out an invitation so that we're going to do some one-on-ones, and then if there's anything that's unanswered, we can come back to the dais here and do that. But
Yes, sir.
That's good. So then the only other thing that really stands out to me, and it may not appear to be a major line item, but I know that when it comes to talking about schools, our colleague from District 11 really, I think it was mentioned earlier, when we start talking about maintenance of effort, that throws up some flags. And in page, well, I guess this is page 0 of our notes to FY 2027 proposed budget. Something that stands out to me is, I don't know, this is a maintenance of effort issue where it says the cost centers of the chief of staff, chief operating officer are reported in this budget as part of the county mayor's cost center. I don't think anyone's proposed that we remove funding from either the chief operating officer or the chief of staff's budget. But by moving these two cost centers under the mayor's office, that puts them under maintenance of effort. That would hamstring this commission from addressing that if we were ever in a real pinch for funding. And that's something that concerns me a bit. I don't think that's the right move. And I just wanted to make that announcement.
Yeah, I'll speak to that one real quick. The legislative intent of the legislature is very clear. The Senate Speaker, or the state senator who sponsored the legislation even spoke to this, but the Chief of Staff's budget center is just a technicality of how the county budget is formatted. Very clearly, the Chief of Staff would be included in the legislative intent around maintenance of effort of the county mayor. It's only here that we have different budget centers. We don't know why there's different budget centers. It's the reason that in this proposed budget, the staff of my office is under one budget. We think that's easier for y'all to understand what's being spent in our office. Honestly, finance doesn't know why for a couple decades there were different budget centers. It's actually very confusing for us. It's much easier, just like any other physical office tends to have one budget center. That's how we would like to see the budget formatted. We think that's easier for the general public or this body to understand what we're doing. But it is certainly our understanding that those budget centers are all already subject to maintenance of effort. They're all clearly employees of the county mayor's office. They just have by tradition in Hamilton County had different budget centers. But as you know, the chief of staff's office is like 4 feet from our office through a threshold.
I appreciate your explanation there. I would say technically every office in the county reports to the mayor's office, and one could argue that every office in the county would be under the mayor's budget. My understanding of the intent of that legislation was different. There were some counties where commissions were trying to basically defund all office expenditures and everything outside of mayor's offices. Paper, fax, copy machines, all of those things. I just think that it restricts flexibility of the county and our ability to address budgets in particularly tight budget seasons, tighter than the one that we're facing today.
Well, you'll see that our budget consolidated shows a very modest decrease. I think you certainly could ask the county attorney about that statute, but there was a maintenance of effort statute that's put in place, and an argument that everybody in county government in some way, or county general government in some way, works for the mayor's office may be true in one regard, but it is very clear in county government, and HR could clarify this, that even from a hiring practice standpoint, that the county mayor's office is clearly defined by the people who work in my office. And I just mean this at a practical level. Y'all know where our office is. You know the people who work in our office, and those are all people who you all work with on a daily basis. I couldn't even tell you, because of the way of the odd nature of the way that this was formatted in the budget. I couldn't even tell you why some of the positions in our office were under the chief of staff versus the county mayor. Like, it didn't make any sense to us. We kept it that way just because that's how it had been done before. The chief operating officer's budget line only has the chief operating officer's salary in it. So there's just really no reason for that to be done that way. But the statute is frankly very clear. And going further, those who wrote this, the state law, have been very clear that their intent is that, from a practical sense, like the people who are physically in the mayor's office are the people who would be protected by the maintenance of effort. So what we're proposing here is not related to the maintenance of effort law.
Respectfully, I disagree. And I'll just stop my questioning now. Thank you, Chairman, for the time. Mayor, gentlemen, thank you.
Hey, Commissioner Highlander.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be brief. Chief Ridey was talking about that whole blood, and also the mayor was talking about the safety issues, and it just became incumbent on me to think that what we're doing and is dollars and cents, and that's very important. It's very urgent, but also human lives are involved here. And as Chief Ridey talked, I thought, golly, and the mayor said the same thing. We're talking about safety. The brother of one of my former students got killed on Snow Hill Road. And I mean, I want to be careful with the taxpayer dollar. We're stewards, we're caretakers of it. But also we need to think about the human lives that are involved. And I think that's what these guys are doing. And I appreciate those statements. I appreciate, Mayor, I appreciate your coming up with this money, wherever it comes from, that $15 million. Do we need to look at other sources? Sure, that's great. I hope we can. But I tell you right now, we're doing what we need to. We're growing so fast. Some of these roads are a death trap for people. And I think we're doing the right thing to try and save lives. And former Chairman Smedley asked me if I would step on the MPO board, which is the TPO board now. And I talked about Snow Hill Road, Hunter Road, and I finally got Snow Hill Road on a tier 3. And I said, tier 3, how long is it before we look at that? They said 7 to 10 years. So, I mean, the mayor said it takes a long time. I've talked to Todd Lehman. Todd does a great job. He's an engineer. It takes a long time to get these things done. The apartments that are affecting Commissioner Eversole in my district, they're in Ooltewah near exit 11. I went to city council and practically begged them to do a roundabout. And the engineer involved said, no, it's too expensive. We're going to do a red light so our people can get in and out of the apartments. And a roundabout would have been, the city engineer said, oh yeah, a roundabout would be much safer, but it costs twice as much. It takes longer to do. So whatever it does, I am thankful that we're trying to save human lives wherever they are, whether they're Red Bank, City of Chattanooga, or unincorporated. We need to, people are what we're here working for. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Thank you, Chairman.
Commissioner Shipley?
One quick question. How much do we have in rainy day fund balance, whatever we call it?
The last audit we've had is as of June 30th, 2025. We had 140,700,000 in fund balance. In total, unassigned fund balance was about 111.5.
Okay, I might want to come back to that.
I hope not.
Okay, I see no more lights. I do have a couple of things. Number one, the budget audit changes when we change numbers and so forth, and we change accounts, regroup. I think our founding fathers, when they said that the commission, and we had a finance and budget committee, that was kind of the process that we worked through these things together. So I would say that that next Wednesday, when we meet, Lee, why don't you and I, Mayor's welcome, Chief Roddy's welcome, sit with the Finance Budget Committee. Let's talk about these budget account changes. Because I think, we're not talking about just today, we're talking about for the future. And I think I think we do a good job partnership, whether it be on compliance committee, getting on the compliance team. We talked about that with legal and legislative, so we all get on the same page, and I think it would be good. And I think on that budget finance committee, Patricia, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Commissioner Helton's on that committee and Commissioner Mackey is on that committee. Is that correct? Okay. But we'll look at convening maybe before the next commission meeting and talk through those so we all get on the same page. And the second thing is as we've been working through all these budget discussions and budget talks, there is a resolution that was created that kind of puts the opportunity for creation of the budget on the chief operating officer and the mayor to combine to basically present to the commission the total county's budget. And I respect that. But what I would ask that due to state laws, that we can ask certain groups that are protected under the maintenance of effort agreement, where we would recommend them adjusting funds to meet a number. I would recommend us not doing that under maintenance of effort, because under maintenance of effort, if the school system comes in front of us and says, hey, we have these dollars, I think the commission's responsibility, because as the key holder to that, is to say, no, this is the dollar you got to come to. I would recommend that when we have those conversations that we say, this is the total number you need to come through, then it's their responsibility to get that through that budgeting process. And that's not telling them you need to cut from lines 4, 5, and 6 or 9, 10, 11. That we do that, and we can have a sidebar on that. It's perfectly fine. But those are the caution areas that I would just recommend.
Sure. Sure.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Mackey. I see your light on. I was going to come to you next. Is that okay? Okay. But I would just prefer us to do it in that fashion. We'll have a sidebar on that. So I just want to keep us out of legal obligations potentially in the future. So Commissioner Mackey.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if you've talked to the mayor about it, but he made reference to a new group, the County Planning Department. How is that going to play into what we're doing?
Well, the Hamilton County Planning Department is what we passed a resolution back in, I guess it was March. We passed it on a 7-4 vote to move away from the Chattanooga Hamilton County Planning Agency. We were going to sever their ties, and beginning July 1st, we would have our own planning department. What I read in the budget, Mr. Janeway, is we're swapping dollar for dollar. So we're moving completely away. I believe it was $914,000, if I remember correctly, give or take a couple dollars, but that was going away from the RPA and it's going into the new Hamilton County Planning Department. So, Mr. Janeway, if you and Mr. Commissioner Mackey, you don't have to right now, but if you would update Commissioner Mackey where we stand on that, that would be awesome. Would appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. Okay, I see no other lights. I know, Mayor, thank you for sending out the invitation for one-on-one meetings with each commissioner because the budget impacts everybody and it doesn't matter if you're all incorporated, as my colleague mentioned earlier, or we're partial, which most of us are, have partial incorporated areas, but I do appreciate your presentation. There's some folks that we always recognize, Vonda, Sheila, Lee, Chief Roddy, Mayor, thank you for your presentation. There's a couple folks, and I see Sheila doing like this. There's a couple folks that probably end up doing more than that group, because one person told me that a while ago, and they never get recognized. And Beverly, you and Josephine, thank you for what you all do behind the scenes, do an awesome job. So, but Beverly Adams and Josephine, the commission appreciates what you all do as well. So thank you so much. All right. With that, we will, I guess, adjourn the budget meeting and we will begin our commission meeting at 5 o'clock.